course, some introduced species, such as most of our food, crops, and pets, are beneficial. However, others are very damaging. The greatest impact is caused by introduced species that change an entire habitat because many native species thrive only in a particular habitat. Here are some examples of trouble that invasive species can cause. Aquatic plants such as South American water hyacinth in Texas and Louisiana and marine algae in the Mediterranean Sea change vast expanses of habitat by replacing formerly dominant native plants. When the Asian chestnut blight fungus virtually eliminated American chestnut from over 180 million acres of eastern United States forests in the first half of the 20th century, it was a disaster for many animals that were highly adapted to live in forests dominated by this tree species. For example, 10 moss species that could live only on chestnut trees became extinct. Most of Florida's fires are fueled by a tree imported from Australia. The Australian paper bark tree has replaced native plants such as sawgrass over 400,000 acres of South Florida because it has a combination of traits, for example, spongy outer bark and flammable leaves and litter, that increase fire frequency and intensity. Many birds and mammals adapted to the native plant community declined as abundant as paper bark spread. The invasive zebra mussel is depleting from food from the marine natives. The zebra mussel accidentally brought to the U.S. from Russia transformed aquatic habitat by filtering extraordinary amounts of water, thereby lowering densities of planktonic organisms and settling in dense masses over vast areas. At least 30 freshwater mussel species are threatened with extinction by the zebra mussel. In the U.S., 53 species of amphibians and reptiles have been introduced primarily in warm weather locations. Florida has 30 of the introduced exotics and Hawaii has 12. Because of the brown tree snake, there are only 3 species of bird left on Guam. Predatory brown tree snake introduced in cargo from the Admiralty Islands has eliminated 10 of the 11 native bird species from the forest of Guam. The Nile perch, a voracious predator introduced to Lake Victoria as a food fish, has already extinguished over 100 species of native cichlid fish there. Rainbow trout, introduced widely into the United States as game fish, are hybridizing with 5 species lists under the Endangered Species Act, such as the Gila trout and Apache trout. A parasite can be simply devastating. The sea lamprey reached the Great Lakes through a series of canals and, in combination with overfishing, led to the extinction of 3 endemic fishes. The European parasite that causes whirling disease in fish, introduced to rainbow trout in a hatchery in Pennsylvania, has now spread to many states and devastated the rainbow trout sport fishery in Montana and Colorado. Herbivores can wreak great damage. The first sailors to land on the remote Atlantic island of St. Helena in the 16th century introduced goats, which quickly extinguished over half the endemic plant species. North American gray squirrels are driving native red squirrels to extinction in Great Britain and Italy by foraging for nuts more efficiently than the native species. Such competition for resources is not easy to observe, but in the end result is loss of native species. Some alien species eliminate native species by breeding with them, altering the gene pool. This is called hybridization, or crossbreeding of introduced species with natives. It has even subtler impact. No lineage goes extinct, but it is sneaky because it leads gradually to extinction of many native species as their gene pools inevitably evolve to become those of the invaders. Introduced mallards, for instance, are driving the native Hawaiian duck to a sort of genetic extinction by breeding with them. Of 26 animal species that have gone extinct since being listed under the Endangered Species Act, at least 3 were wholly or partly lost because of hybridization with invaders. One was a fish native to Texas, eliminated by hybridization, was introduced mosquito fish. The endangered endemic Hawaiian duck is being lost to hybridization with North American mallards introduced for hunting. The rarest European duck, the white-headed duck, is threatened by hybridization with the North American ruddy duck, which was originally kept as an amenity in Britain's game parks. The ruddy duck escaped across the English Channel and spread to Spain, the last stronghold of the white-headed duck. About 20,000 microbes have been introduced to the United States. More than 500 introduced plants have become weed pests, mostly initially as crops. Approximately 97 of the 1,000 bird species in the U.S. are exotic, though some birds, like chickens and pigeons, were introduced for agriculture. Most are considered pests. Many birds damage plants around their homes and public buildings, while others are considered nuisances to agriculture crops. Often invaders, with one example to generate a problem where either species alone would be harmless. For example, ornamental fig trees in Miami area for over a century stayed where planted in people's yards because they were sterile. Each fig species required a particular wasp to pollinate it, and the the wasps were absent. About 15 years ago, the pollinating wasps for the three big species arrived independently in the region, and now these big species are reproducing. At least one has become invasive, with seedlings and saplings being found many miles from planted figs. More cases of this phenomenon termed invasive meltdown are likely to arrive as more species are introduced and have the opportunity to interact with each other.